Mother was extraordinarily lonely. And so I took her to a painting class that they offered for people living with memory loss. And she didn't expect anything. I didn't expect anything, but she painted this wonderful painting. It was really interesting. And we didn't expect it. She also denied painting it. She said, I didn't do that. I don't do that. That's a stupid thing to do. That's only for children. I didn't do that. So, but I was fascinated. So every week I kept going back to see what she had painted. And it didn't take very long for me to suddenly go, oh, I get it. She's still here. She's still living with wit and invention and joy. And the art changed everything. It confounded everything I thought I knew about Alzheimer's. It enabled me to get to know my mother, which I had never really done because she was very busy with 5 children. And we never, ever used the word love in our family. But we knew she loved us because it was her job. So I got to know Mom. And I quickly, I admit, turned her art into a new profession, a new job. I started the Art of Alzheimer's, which was bringing the power of art and their ability to enhance the people of lives of people living with dementia. And I shared that with people. And the thing that was fascinating is that the first thing that everybody said when they saw Mother's art was, I had no idea.
Welcome to the Alz Authors Podcast. We're so glad you found us. We're the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. I'm Mary Ann Shuko, a registered nurse, author, and dementia daughter.
And I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, a licensed educational psychologist, dementia daughter, Alz author, and coach focused on the sandwich generation. Please join us for bi-weekly episodes with our authors as we talk about their dementia journeys, sharing intimate details and painfully obtained knowledge to help others currently on that path.
We hope these stories offer you comfort and support as we strive to break the silence and stigma surrounding a dementia diagnosis.
May one of our authors speak to your experience.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hi, I'm Jean Lee from Alz Authors. All the resources we offer at alzauthors.com, including this podcast, are brought to you free of charge. Our management team is a dedicated group of passionate volunteers who earn no financial compensation. But to continue our mission to provide valuable resources to dementia caregivers, we need the support of listeners like you. If you'd like to support us, please make a donation at alzauthors.com/donate. We are a 501c3 organization. Remember, you are not alone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Alz Authors Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia podcast. How are you, Christy?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. We're recording this in January, and when I woke up this morning, it was -1. here in New York, so that doesn't make me too happy. We're right in the middle of winter though, so what can we expect?
Right, exactly. I don't even want to tell you what it is here in Sacramento, but it's a little bit more than one. But I feel you. I mean, I have lots of relatives living in New York City, and it is cold. It's chilly.
It's very cold. It's very cold. And so we're here today with the podcast to offer you a little warmth and to introduce you to a really terrific author, Marilyn Raichle,
Yeah,
who's the author of a book called Don't Walk Away, A Care Partner's Journey. And it tells her story of caring for her mom, who had Alzheimer's, and her dad, he also had Parkinson's related dementia, but the book is more about her mother and their journey. And it involves art and some other wonderful things that you may not associate with dementia. So I think she has a lot to teach our listeners.
I do too, and I feel like like you said, it's a chilly day when we're recording this, and she brought such light to this conversation. And hearing what she has to say, I think is really powerful for all of our folks out there who are walking a dementia journey, because it can feel like a dark cloud. And Marilyn really helps us see how she learned to see the beauty, see the joy, find the connection, and she just lights up talking about her mom. So I feel like there's a lot of sunshine in this episode too.
Yeah, and I think her mom's the Alzheimer's journey gave her a whole new mom and a new relationship with her mom, who became somebody that she didn't really know throughout her life. Her mother was sort of an enigma to her, and they ended up developing a beautiful relationship, which is not an uncommon thing. We've heard that before on the podcast. And we also have Jean Lee with us today for our interview with Marilyn. She is the acquisitions editor who helped bring Marilyn into our fold. So Jean's the author of Alzheimer's Daughter. So we enjoy having her here to help guide our discussion.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great discussion.
Yeah, so before we get started, we did have a couple of announcements to make. We want the listeners to know that Al's Authors is participating in Podcast-On this year. It starts on March 15th. It's a week-long festival of podcasters who are sharing episodes in an effort to raise money for their favorite charities. And guess who our favorite charity is?
Oh, let me think. Let me think long and hard. I think it would be Al's Authors, and we're so excited.
Yes, it is.
That we get
Yes,
to
it is.
participate and hopefully raise some money.
Exactly. We are highlighting an episode coming up. It's going to be our discussion that we did back in February 18th on the long haul, the long-term impact of caregiving. So we recorded that, and we are using that as the episode for Podcast-On. And you'll be able to catch that on March 15th. We're releasing our episode on the first day. And we also have a mini pod attached to this podcast with a friend of ours, C. Nathan Brown, who is putting together the Exposed Dementia Conference, which is happening in late March, March 28th to the 30th on the weekend. And it's called the Exposed Dementia Conference, the ART of the Matter. So that's interesting because we're talking about art with Marilyn today. And this is going to be held at the Maritime Conference Center in Linthicum, Maryland. So at the end of the podcast, hang on and you will hear all about it from C. Nathan Brown himself.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. I think it's great. And I think it's really exciting that we're adding some mini pods this year in our 10th anniversary year and starting some new things. And so that's great. But definitely want to alert people to some of the fun things that are coming up. That's great.
Awesome. So let's get to Marilyn.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. We're here for another podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Marianne Shuko. Hi, Marianne.
Hey, Christy. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. And we have Jean Lee, another founder and author at Al's Authors, who's here. And she's the acquisitions editor who brought in or helped to bring in the author that we'll be talking with today, Marilyn Raichle. So she is the author of Don't Walk Away, A Care Partner's Journey. So we're very excited to have you here, Marilyn. Thank you and welcome, Jean.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you both. And so I'm going to start with you, Jean. I wanted you to tell us a little bit about what you discovered in reading Marilyn's book and what stuck out for you and what you want to tell readers.
Oh, Marilyn's book is just a very special book because it is all based upon the art that her mom produced when she was ill, suffering from dementia. And I think what was so powerful for me, Marilyn, in your book was that at a point where most of us think, or many of us may think, it's just not worth going to see mom or dad anymore. They're vacant. They are not there. You chose to turn that around and come in and be the cheerleader for your mom as she made her beautiful art. And you found such value in what was there instead of what was missing.
It was the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
Well, it sounds beautiful. And I love that imagery of like you finding what's there instead of what's missing, you discovering another part of your mom. So that's lovely.
Yeah.
So, Marilyn, tell us a little bit about your story, how you came to write your book, and a little bit about your journey.
I would love to. I was raised in what I call the shadow of Alzheimer's. Nearly everybody on my father's side of the family got it when they hit 80, some in moms. And mother was very clear. From childhood on, she told us, when your father and I get Alzheimer's, I want you to walk away. We're not going to remember you. There's nothing you can do. So just go live your life and don't sacrifice it for us and walk away. And we all, my four brothers and sisters and I, agreed. That's the sensible thing to do. They lived in a really good continuing care facility, which most people in this country cannot afford. And so mom started to develop dementia around the age of 80. We were surprised. We expected dad to get it first, but he had Parkinson's, so he had other issues. So they were living the best. They were in this wonderful place. And um, we all basically ignored it, let dad carry the burden, even though he had Parkinson's. And then about 2006, I got back from graduate school and there were no jobs. It was during the recession, no jobs. So my family said, okay, we have a solution. We're going to chip in and keep you afloat, and you're going to be the family caregiver. Well, the last thing in the world that I expected or wanted to be was a caregiver, because that was like, walk away, walk away. But it was now my new job. So there I was. I couldn't walk away. And so I did my best, which wasn't very good, to make sure that mom and dad were happy as well as possible. Took them to doctors' offices and basically kept track of their progress. Um, and then my father died at the age of 89, and they'd been together for 72 years. They were best friends, and mother was extraordinarily lonely. And so I took her to a painting class that they offered for people living with memory loss. And she didn't expect anything. I didn't expect anything, but she painted this wonderful painting. It was really interesting, and we didn't expect it. She also denied painting it. She said, I didn't do that. I don't do that. That's a stupid thing to do. That's only for children. I didn't do that. So, but I was fascinated. So every week I kept going back to see what she had painted. And it didn't take very long for me to suddenly go, oh, I get it. She's still here. She's still living with wit and invention and joy. And the art changed everything. It confounded everything I thought I knew about Alzheimer's. It enabled me to get to know my mother, which I had never really done because she was very busy with 5 children. And We never ever used the word love in our family, but we knew she loved us because it was her job. So I got to know mom, and I quickly, I admit, turned her art into a new profession, a new job. I started the Art of Alzheimer's, which was bringing the power of art and their ability to enhance the lives of people living with dementia. And I shared that with people. And the thing that was fascinating is that the first thing that everybody said when they saw Mother's art was, I had no idea. And they were like me. I had no idea that when mom first started to develop dementia, all I saw was loss. All I heard was confusion. And the art enabled me to see who was there. And the woman that I loved emerged. And it started our 9-year journey as care partners together. And because I had turned this into a new job, I had, was working the press. Mother got an Emmy, which is behind me up on that shelf. But I was still more focused on the art than mom. And one day, I started to look at her art, and it started to me deteriorate. She was losing interest. It was the same scratchy lines and the same figure and the same color. And so one day I got there early, and we did everything she loved to do. We played Scrabble, which we did every day. We looked at the view. We took a walk. We sang a song. And we just had a wonderful time together. And that day at the painting class, her paintings completely changed. Warm animal images emerged and different colors, and a sense of whimsy started to come through her paintings again. And I went, oh, I get it. Finally, we're partners. I have something to do with this. So from then on, we were partners. We were building a life together. And that went on for the next 9 years. And I learned so much about myself, about mother, about people living with dementia. It was extraordinary. It was just the most wonderful thing I have ever done. And I am a much nicer person now than I used to be because I learned that all the things that enable people living with dementia to live happier and more fulfilled lives works the same for everyone. So ultimately, I started to actually put into practice the blueprint mother gave me. So it was just, and I wrote the book because I wanted to share that. I wanted to invite people to take a walk with me and mom and experience a life with dementia that is not filled with sorrow and loss, but is actually filled with hope and laughter and joy and lessons. And so it was just fun.
Wow.
It was just fun to be with mother. It was so much fun to be with mother.
That is so beautiful. I mean, there's just so much in that, and I really appreciate the piece you're saying about you finally got to know your mother. Finding her, and it's almost like, and then what you're saying about how dementia, Alzheimer's had stripped away some of the things, so you really kind of got to understand how to be with her and how people can be with one another really authentically.
Yeah, and it actually didn't strip away. I was blind to it,
Okay. Yeah.
for my whole life, but it enabled me to see years before she developed dementia. One day I lived in a house not far from her where she lived, the continuing care facility. And one day she just showed up unannounced, and I was taking a nap, and she laid down next to me and told me she loved me. And I remember crying. I didn't say anything. And she turned to me and whispered and said, I guess I should have said that more often. And our lives of care partners unlocked all that love
Wow.
that had waited so long to express itself. So
Wow.
again, we never used the word love, but it was filled with love. And the most interesting thing was that I just assumed that mother would be looking forward to my visits. Of course, I'm her daughter. And then I realized that actually far more important to her were the people, her companions, her neighbors in the assisted living facility. And fortunately, they were willing to accept me into their family. So I became a part of their family and had 6 adopted new mothers. And so my life enlarged. And it was just, and they were all distinctly fascinating people. Um, it was just, it was just, so every day, and that by this time I was going every day. It wasn't that I needed to be there. I didn't want to, it wasn't a job anymore. It was, I needed to be there. And so it was just, it was so much fun and so relaxing. I always surprise people when I tell them I used to go to visit mother in assisted living to relax. They just look at me like you're insane. But it was just, they were such wonderful people.
Yeah.
And there were no deadlines. It was just the moment. And I learned to enjoy the moment and I learned to find joy in the moment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about mom remembering anything. It was about mom being happy.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
That certainly puts a
Yeah.
twist on a lot of common perceptions about what it's like to have a loved one with Alzheimer's or to be the one with Alzheimer's where it's so dark and gloomy and a death sentence and horrifying and horrific and all those negative words that are associated with a diagnosis. And, what I've come to learn in my experience in nursing and in caring for people like you, I enjoyed my job when I worked in the dementia unit that everybody was afraid to go to. And I look forward to it. I wasn't, I didn't really, phase me
Yeah.
that it was supposed to be a bad place or that's what everybody thought. Nobody wanted to hear me talk about it though. I remember that. They thought I was weird. But my peers, what are you talking about? Why do
Yeah.
you want to go there? But it was just a joyful place. And when you remove all of those expectations and try to live in the moment, make sure that they're happy and comfortable, I mean, great things can happen. And you're like a witness to that. And sharing the story is so important because people, people listening today that may have just gotten, a new diagnosis and are lost and don't know what to do and thinking that everything is going to be, this is the end. It's not the end, it's just the beginning of something else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things that I did when I started giving everybody shoulder massages. So when I get there, and they wouldn't know what I meant because I would always ask, would you like a shoulder massage? And they wouldn't necessarily know what I meant, but they would see the woman next to them going, and they would want one too. So it became a ritual that I would give shoulder massages, and I received the 2 best compliments of my entire life. One was from Jane, who came up to me and she said, "Oh, you have such happy hands." And the best was from Gloria. I was giving her a shoulder massage and she turned to me and she said, "Do you tuck your wings in a handkerchief when you're not here?"
Oh, how
And you just,
sweet.
and you tell people these things and they're just not expecting to find joy. And when I have friends who had a friend whose mother was starting to develop dementia, and I said, just take 5 minutes and do something you both enjoy doing. It can be simple. It can be taking a walk. It can be singing a song. It can be looking at the view. It can just be sitting with each other and smiling. But you may find that it's so refreshing and so much fun that you want to do it again. And you'll want to do it again. That you'll see the person who's there, not what's lost.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing.
Well, I do really resonate with and love hearing you say, be with the person who's there, because I know sometimes I would hear things like, well, that's not really your mom anymore. And I'd say, yeah, it's absolutely my mom. That's my mom. She didn't go anywhere. I have to meet her where she is. And,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. So that's kind of
Well,
a
one of
thing.
my
Yeah.
sisters,
No.
sorry, one of my sisters once said, "Mom left us years ago."
Oh,
And I said, well, if she left, who's there? And I would suggest that it's somebody well worth getting to know. That and that everything, and I really do believe this, that who Mother was essentially at her core was intact. It was different. It was expressing itself differently, but intact. I mean, she was still competitive, and she was still a leader, and she was still funny. She was still curious. And all those things that were so profoundly important to us growing up, they were still there, just expressed differently. And so, and she had all these friends. I mean, the first thing she did when she moved into her little unit was to make friends. So she had two best friends. And every and the whole community was great, but the two best, Phyllis and Kathleen, they were tight. Phyllis didn't speak. She just cooed. And Kathleen was very stern. And somehow they met in the middle, and they were always walking around looking for something to do. And one day they were up on the roof talking to the birds, as Kathleen put it. And she said, do you think they talk to each other the way we do? And when they finished, they came downstairs, and Kathleen turned to me and she said, we enjoy each other.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And in the process of my time with them, I realized that they're basic human needs that we all share, that never leave us. The need for friends, the need to laugh, the need to be of value, and the need to love and be loved. We share those. We will share them till the day we die. And Mother shared those. They all shared those with me in different ways. And they were just, it was so much fun. And I would not have had this experience if it hadn't been for her art. Because not only was it was eye-opening and really interesting, but after the first 6 months, she started to transform things. So a zucchini became a dragon, and irises became this glowering figure, yellow eyes peering behind what looked like irises. And I mean, every painting was sort of like, what is she thinking? And I realized the art was her way. I was connecting with ideas and thoughts and emotions that she wasn't able to express verbally. Or that she never would have, because in our family, emotions were considered an indulgence and you should just put them to one side. And so it was fascinating to see her express herself through her art. So the book is just filled with her art, which was sort of this track of how I emerged, and you could see how she emerged. So that at the beginning, when she painted, they were perfectly symmetrical, and tended to have a face. And then they changed as the years went by, but she still painted until she was 96.
Wow.
She died at 96. And one day my sister came from New York, and she was an artist, and she started painting with Mom. And she noticed that Mom was painting circles, that the model on the table was apples. And Mom was drawing circles. And Jeannie said, oh, circles, that's a really good idea. I think I'm going to start painting circles too. And Mother started to paint circles more and more. And Jeannie kept complimenting on her art and sort of shepherding her through. And ultimately, for the first time ever, she didn't want to stop painting. She just kept painting. It was just, and it took me so long to understand certain things, like to ask Mother questions. If Mother asked me one question over and over and over and over and over and over again, what was Seattle going to be like in 100 years? Sometimes it was 250 years. And I used to just make up ideas about what I thought it would be and change the subject. And then I suddenly realized, if she keeps asking me this question, it must mean something to her. So I asked her, I said, well, what do you think it's going to be? And floodgates opened. She came up with all sorts of ideas. She said, maybe we'll all fly. And she had one idea. She said, maybe women will start wearing skirts again. But it was just this constant learning process for me of like, ask her questions and listen. she's telling you something. It was just amazing. It was just so much fun.
I had a question about, you started by talking about how your parents both had said, when or if or when this happens, just walk away. And all of you, all five of you said, oh, okay,
5 of us.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So how did your siblings respond to your book and to what you're doing now? How did they receive that?
Well, my sister, who's the artist, and her daughter, Anna, who's also an artist, um, they were fascinated. Um, and I think the rest of them had a hard time sort of paying attention to it. Still sort of, there's a lot of fear or just rejection of the idea that people living with dementia have value, um, that they're there. And you know, it, it's not that how they've reacted to it. They just sort of have it,
Got it.
it's sort of the Raichle. My mother's family were Scottish Calvinists, and that's where you just sort of put all that to one side and you just keep it. Plus, every Scottish Calvinist is convinced they're going to heaven because they're a member of the elect, which is those preordained to go to heaven. And every Scottish Calvinist you meet is pretty darn sure they're a member of the elect. So there's no issue. So when someone dies, there were rules. You must not have funerals, you must not have memorial services, and you must not cry. Very strict.
Wow.
And never, she cried when Dad died, but I'd never seen her cry before.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, it's hard for people to want to read or immerse themselves in that world because it strikes such fear.
Sure.
And my goal is that it's not, no one wants to get dementia. No one wants to develop Alzheimer's. But there is joy there. You can find joy there. There is laughter there. The person is there. And so when I say don't walk away, for all those people who've walked away, sort of hoping the book is sort of a nudge to reconsider.
Sure.
You may be surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely.
And she was just so interesting. She once when we walked out of her little room, her apartment, and there was no one there, and she turned to me with this gleam in her eye, and she said, "You know what this means?" I said, "No, what?" She said, "We're the most beautiful women in sight." And it just every day there was something like, what a wonderful woman. And all of the people she lived with were wonderful people. It was just, and so if you give people, if you believe in them and you give people the opportunity to share joy with you, then you can see the person. It's just hard for people.
For some people, it's might be a relief to be able to walk away. But even if that's what the person wants, when a person is in a situation like that, that's when they need you the most. They need your attention and your advocacy. Somebody needs to be making sure that they are being well cared for, because we all know that not everybody is as fortunate as your mom. Even if you can't have a relationship, you don't think you can, you still need to be paying attention to what's going on with them and making sure everything is okay. I know a lot of people think when somebody moves from, say, home to care, somehow they're going to be relieved of a lot of stress and pressure, but you just have new stress and pressure. I experienced that myself. Yeah.
People, will say, well, she won't remember it anyway, so why visit? But the joy she experiences when you're there lasts. And it lasts for you too.
Exactly.
And it works with each other. But then, and this is the thing, that one of the reasons that I wrote the book is that the vast majority of people in this country, in this world perhaps, believe that people living with dementia have no value. They're just empty shells where someone used to live, and sort of move on. And that I'm hoping this will be a bridge to the much needed realization that people living with dementia are wonderful people who need our support to thrive and to live with happiness, and that they can thrive, that to believe, yes, they can thrive, that they have. A wonderful woman came up with this for me. She said, people living with dementia have lives to live and gifts to give.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so and then you look at her art and you just go, wow, interesting, how fascinating. And then they want to learn more because it sidesteps the fear because the art is so interesting. And Mother literally refused to admit that she painted. I'm not sure whether this was a McPhee thing where you're not supposed to admit to certain things, but she always would say, I didn't do this. I would never do this. I must have gotten this from your father's side of the family. And if I complimented her on a piece of art, she would just go, I didn't do that, and then change the subject. So
Interesting. So
yeah, it
interesting.
was really, really only once, because her competitive nature came out. Once I painted with her because the staff said maybe she should stop painting because she was starting to drink the paint. And I thought, well, all right, I'm going to be with her. And I painted with her. And she did try to take a little sip of the paint. But at the end of the class, we held up both our paintings, and Mother said, I like mine best. And then about 30 minutes later, that was gone. But that for that one moment, she was sort of like, yes, mine's good. That was mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's a fascinating journey if you have the will to do it. And the will to do it is pretty easy once you start doing it because it's so much fun. When Mom died, as soon as I could, I went back to assisted living just to be with all of my family. And these two women were reminiscing about Mom, and one was Evelyn, who was 104. And she didn't have dementia, but she was 104 and she needed to live in assisted living. And next to her was Ruby, who was from Atlanta. And they were reminiscing about Mom, and Ruby held up this little red plastic flower. And she said, I think about Jean every time I see this. You want to know why? And I said, why? She said, because she tried to eat it.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it was just fun.
Sure. Yeah.
And a constant discovery of my role and Mom's life and our life together.
Sounds like you learned a lot about yourself and many other things. What other
Oh, well, I'm a person for whom reading The Art of War was light reading. I grew up in a very competitive family. Winning was the most important thing. So I was in hyper competitive because I was the fourth and had a lot to prove. So I would talk about myself before I would talk about other people. I wouldn't ask questions. It was really about me and can I win? Can I win? Can I win? And with Mom, she gave me these lessons: was calm down, listen, just be there, ask questions, and really listen to the answers. It's not about me. It's not about how I might feel if I had dementia. It's about Mom. And she was light years ahead of me when it came to accepting and moving on with her life. She was happily living a life. And took me a long time to sort of join her because I was resisting it. But once I turned that, then it was just happiness. And she just taught me to sort of calm down. And the listening thing was really hard for me, but and then all of my adopted mothers taught me how to live as well. So, I had this influx of people with lessons and experiences that made me a better person now. Um, I was, I'm a much nicer, happier person now than I used to be.
Wow. I mean, that's very moving. Very moving.
Which I would hasten to say that I I was lucky because mom lived in a continuing care facility that was really good. And for the vast majority of home caregivers, they are operating without a net. They're exhausted. They're juggling family and jobs, maybe, and the needs of their loved ones. So I don't mean to say, oh, everything can be just happy and wonderful, but there is joy there. And that once you find that little nugget of joy, it can grow and it can make your life better.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really wonderful to share with people. I think that's something, as Marianne alluded to, a lot of times people have it just feels like such a horrible dark cloud. And then to hear this other piece of it, that there's joy possible, and that there's personal transformation for yourself as a caregiver, and
Yeah.
who you become being a caregiver, and really learning to slow down and connect in a way that maybe you haven't been able to, growing up, your mother's your mother, and if you have four siblings and you're all kind of, there's a lot going on, and then the time to really slow down doesn't appear till later, and there you go. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So it was, and I wish that everyone in my family could have experienced it. It would have, but it's, so they have to just read the book and maybe it'll seep in. In fact, I was talking to a cousin of mine at a family reunion, and he was saying, if I ever get dementia, I just want to die. And I said, Chuck, have you read my book? He said, not yet. And I said, you try it. You might feel a little different.
Yeah. You've done a lot in to support people in the Alzheimer community. Can you tell us a little bit about the Art of Alzheimer's and some of the other projects that you're involved with?
Again, I owe all of this to mother. So the Art of Alzheimer's, I sort of had to stop at a certain point. But because I was talking a lot about mom's art and sharing it with people, I did this in front of a group once. And I met this wonderful man named Richard Ferry. And he became a supporter. And then about 2 years later, I got an email from him, and his wife, Maud, had developed dementia in 2013. And he had no idea what to do, like so many people. And so he started looking around, and then he said, well, okay, I have an idea. What if was exceedingly wealthy. What if I start a program where we will give awards to people for programs and practices of care that they have done that have enriched the lives of people living with dementia. So he started Maud's Awards for innovation in Alzheimer's care. And I get to run it. So again, I owe this to mother. Another transformation in my life. And every year we give away $100,000. And this could be to anybody, organizations, individuals, who are doing something that has made a difference in the lives of people living with dementia. And so we're just about to enter our sixth anniversary, or 6th year. And so was the next phase of my life. I used to work in the theater, and this marked the huge change. And now my life is being part of an incredibly vibrant and growing movement in this country that is viewing Alzheimer's and dementia not with despair, but with hope.
Right. Very good.
And yeah, and so this is what I'm doing now. So Maud's Awards, it's really rewarding and wonderful. So my life is just, and I live in Seattle, so almost anything in Seattle that's doing wonderful things for people living with dementia, you can trace that back to Richard Ferry. It's just this exceedingly. And so he's using his wealth for good.
Oh, that's fabulous.
A man who truly lives his faith.
Fantastic.
And plus, I tell people about the book, and so I want people to read the book because if you're a caregiver, it might make you happier.
Marilyn, would you consider yourself to always have been a positive person, positive minded? Oh, how interesting.
Oh, no.
Because I
Oh, no.
I
Oh,
asked
no.
that because I'm wondering if you had that backdrop in coming into caring for your mother, because it has provided you so much joy. And I am asking this for our listeners who may think, oh, Marilyn is a happy, joy person anyway. But I hear you say you are not, but this, you said, became the most wonderful thing you've ever done, that you found fun in it and love was unlocked.
Yeah. Yeah. I was driven.
Mm.
I had to succeed. And so life was basically succeed, succeed, succeed. Life is almost like a war, which is why I think I like the art of war. And that I was not raised to trust people. Um, the biggest gift I think mom gave me, well, there's so many, but one is to love people and to believe that I could be loved. This was not something I grew up thinking. Um, and so it was a complete sea change in how I viewed the world and related to other people, that where there was always sort of distrust and suspicion and a need to dominate, that just left. That was gone.
Wow.
So yeah, I was not like that. My oldest sister, yes, much more so, but it was a tough family. But my father, when he developed dementia, and he died before I learned all these lessons. But there's this one little footnote at the end where if I knew then what I know now, it's what I would have done with my father. That he was not like mom. He was not this cheerful, positive, laughing person. Um, he was quick to anger. And so I could have just been with him. I could have just sat with him and let him know by my presence that I was not going to abandon him. I could have given him a shoulder massage, which he adored, but I never thought of that. I could have brought him his favorite food. I could have told him I loved him. Um, and these are just simple things, not the things I did with mom. Mom was just a new life. But with dad, I could have just been there because I think I knew that once mom and I came back late while dad was still with us, and dad was furious. He just was at the door shaking, saying, "You abandoned me." And mother fell to her knees and said, "Oh, Bob, I'll never do that again. I'll never do that again." And to my eternal shame, what I did was glared at him and left.
Hmm.
Well, that was the old days. He was afraid of being abandoned, and that I could have helped him with that fear. And that so many people are abandoned for various reasons. So that it just and literally just sitting with him would have been a wonderful thing.
Well, I think one of the things that's so powerful about all the books in Al's author's library is exactly what you're talking about. It's like, what would you want someone to know when they first find a person has this diagnosis, or they themselves have this diagnosis? And to know that there's this other side of it is a really hopeful and powerful touchstone, rather than focusing on all the things we have to do to make sure that this does, we're gonna rehearse things and fix that memory, and instead of just being with.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think this is great for our listeners and our readers to know this other side of it. And what other advice would you give to someone who maybe has recently learned that someone in their family that they may have to care for has a dementia diagnosis? What would be one of the first things you'd tell them to think about?
they're living with dementia. They're not suffering from, they are a whole human being. That it's not about you. And that together you will be surprised if you can share joy for even a minute, that the person you love, you will be able to see. Because if all you can see is fear, sadness, and loss, that is all you will ever see. But if you can see, if you can laugh, if you can smile, if you can enjoy something together, you can see that person. And so it's like, calm down. It's not about you. It's not about you. Because it's really, the fear is all about me. I'm so afraid. I don't want this to happen to me. I have one sister who says, I'm never going to get Alzheimer's. I said, well, congratulations. That's wonderful news. I'm so happy for you. It's sort of like, so it's this push back. So if you're pushing back on that, you're pushing the person back too. Just calm down, relax, ask questions, listen,
Yes.
and love them.
Yes.
And laugh. Laughter's so important. I mean, just being able to laugh together.
I don't know if you prepared for this, but if you have a moment and you would like to read a passage, we would love to hear it. Okay, you've got to go. Bye,
loved
Jean.
it.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jean.
Get this, because this is good. I hope I can age like Mom, living a life abundant with love, purpose, and friends, fascinated by the world, curious about the future, and filled with laughter, focusing on the positive, accepting the inevitable, and enjoying the ride.
Oh,
great.
lovely.
And that was Mom when she was living with dementia for 14 years.
Wow. Yeah. How long did she live with dementia? For
14 years. She
Okay.
started in her 80s. She died at 82 to 96.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And she actually made me laugh on her deathbed, which is not easy to do. She was raised in this Republican banking family that hated Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And every time she saw the Roosevelt Hotel or heard the word, she'd say, we didn't like him. I said, I know. This throughout our life. And then wherever she lived, wherever she looked at Horizon House, she would see the Roosevelt Hotel. We didn't like him. So she's on her deathbed. She is in a coma. She is 2 days from death. Her colon has burst. And my sister and brother and I are standing around her. We're singing to her and we're telling her we love her. And I mentioned her dislike of the Roosevelt Hotel and she flinched.
She was in there listening.
And I realized she could hear me. I knew she understood me. And so for the next 2 days, I sat next to her and held her hand and talked. Never mentioned Roosevelt, but it was like her final gift to me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. Always funny, always laughing, always finding the joy in life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Where can people find your book, Marilyn?
They can find it on Amazon. And they have to actually, turns out there are lots of books called Don't Walk Away. So Don't Walk Away, A Care Partner's Journey. And they can also go to the book's website, which is don'twalkaway.net, which has the link to the Amazon page, but also more information about Mom and more art and lessons. There's one thing about tips for caregivers. So don'twalkaway.net is another place to go.
Okay, and we also have an essay that you've written about your book on our website, allsauthors.com. So we invite people to visit our website and read more about you and your story and the whole collection of books that we have here at All's Authors.
Well, I'd like to thank All's Authors. You do such great work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're so happy to have you in the family. And this is great. And I think it's such a lovely book. And I love the intersection of art and caregiving. And it's really nice to be able to share all that with people. Really great.
Yeah, it's and the art alone is fascinating.
Yes. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Marilyn. Where can
Thank
people
you.
find you on social media?
I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Good to talk to you.
Bye-bye, Marilyn.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, an All's Authors podcast. For more details on this episode, please see the show notes. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to it on whichever platform you use to listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information on All's Authors, please visit allsauthors.com. While you're there, be sure to browse our online bookstore, where you will find hundreds of carefully vetted books on Alzheimer's and dementia. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please email your thoughts on the podcast to allsauthors@gmail.com. We are a 501c3 charitable organization, totally reliant on donations to do what we do. If our authors' stories move you, please consider contributing to our cause. Remember, you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony. And now let's hear from C. Nathan Brown, also known as Chuck, about the Exposed Dementia Conference coming up March 28th. Hi, Chuck. Welcome to the All Authors Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia podcast. How are you today?
Doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. We want to make sure our listeners are aware of your upcoming conference, Exposed Dementia, which will be March 28th to 30th in Linthicum, Maryland.
Yes.
Is that right? Can you tell us a little bit more about it? What can people expect if they attend the conference?
Sure. The Exposed Dementia Conference, we are super excited about it. As you mentioned, it's going to be March 28th through the 30th. It's an art-based, media-based conference. So all things art and media, which will include an art exhibit. It's going to include a comedy show. It's going to include a film festival. And then it's also going to include sessions that deal with all aspects of music therapy, dance therapy, art therapy, Lego therapy. We're going to talk about writing books. We're going to talk about so many things as used to be able to use as tools to impact the dementia community, those living with dementia, as well as caregivers. So we're super excited about bringing all of those things to the table in one place over the course of this time, just to really move the needle forward and making a difference.
Oh, that sounds terrific. I'm a big advocate for using the arts in dementia care because I know people have gotten incredible results. And we talk about a lot about that on our podcast if people want to tune into different episodes. But who are some of the people that you have that are going to speaking or conducting workshops at the conference?
Yes, we have Loretta Vini, who is well known as the Lego Lady.
Yeah.
Everyone calls her that. She's going to be doing a session and demonstration. We also have Kendra Ray, who is a music therapist. Natasha Goldstein, who is going to be there, is a dance therapist. Erica Curcio, who's an art therapist. We have just so many amazing people. Magda. I always mess her name up, so I just call her Magda, but Magda Kamarska. I'm hoping I'm saying it right. Please forgive me if it's wrong, Magda. She's going to be there as well. She's a dance artist and researcher, so she'll be doing moderating a panel. And then we have so many others. We're going to be doing sessions on research and sessions on dementia around the world. We have people coming in from London. We're going to have someone from South Africa, someone from the Caribbean, talking about how dementia is impacting their areas as well. So it's not limited to what we're going through here in the United States, but it's impacting the entire world. So we wanted to include that aspect as well. And then we have Sam Simon come in. He's going to be doing a portion of his one-man show, The Dementia Man. We're going to be showing my documentary, Remember Me, Dementia in the African American Community. So it's a good cross section of experiences and people who are really coming to have an impact and really make a difference and let people know how important storytelling is in today's life.
That sounds wonderful. It's just kind of like right up our alley at All's Authors. That's kind of a lot about what we do is the value of storytelling and caregiving.
Yeah.
Sharing our stories makes us stronger.
And we
And
will be featuring authors as well.
yeah.
And then we'll be doing an author fireside chat. We haven't finalized that particular chat yet, but we will be doing that. That's our way of making sure authors are really incorporated and highlighted in sharing the importance of the work that we do as writers as well. So it's going to be just an amazing time. We really want people to come out and support, to learn, encourage other people, really connect with others who are doing the work, but then also letting people like the caregivers, especially new caregivers, know that hey, you can do this. You're not alone. There is support, and here we are.
Mm, sounds terrific. And why are you doing this? What is your why?
My why started with my family. My family has been impacted by dementia. I probably lost 6 or 7 family members from some form of dementia. Most of them we didn't know exactly what type. We just knew dementia. And then currently, I have 3 family members living with dementia.
Mm.
And so it hit my family hard, and that's how it pulled me in. Like most people who are active, it's been some personal journey, and then from there it expanded because I realized how badly it's hitting us as a country, hitting us as a community, and so I wanted to do more, and I wanted to pull from my background, my experiences in the arts, in media, in entertainment to be able to help, and so that's what we did. We formed Exposed Dementia Incorporated, the organization, to be able to really rally people together and then figure out different ways to present this information because especially in the African American community, it's still a taboo topic. And so I know in other communities it's talked about a little bit more, but there's still work to be done. And so we just want to be able to do our part.
It sounds terrific. Where can people learn more about the conference and register?
Yes, you can go to www.exposeddementia.org. That's our website, and there's a conference page on there where you'll get a chance to see some of the things that will be there. You can hit the registration button right on the website. You can also become a sponsor. Information is there as well. So anything you need is there. But if you have questions, you can reach out to us through the email, the website as well.
Awesome. And do you have any social media? Are you posting stuff out there?
Yeah, so everything is under exposed dementia or exposing dementia because in a couple of cases it wouldn't allow us to do exposed dementia. So on Instagram, it's exposing dementia. We also are building a YouTube page, which is going to be YouTube/exposed dementia. So we're going to have different clips from the conference on the YouTube page after the conference as well. Since a lot of people have asked if it was going to be streamed or anything like that, it won't be, but we're planning to add, different portions to the YouTube page afterwards.
Okay, so I guess people who are interested should sign up or follow you so that they can get the information whether or not they can attend in person or not.
Yes, and I look forward to it.
Okay, I look forward to it too. I wish you the best of luck on this important conference.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Landis of All's Authors. If you're listening to this podcast, you may be looking for more support on your dementia journey. Please visit our website at allsauthors.com, where you'll find hundreds of carefully vetted resources written by caregivers and professionals in Alzheimer's and dementia care. You'll get knowledge, comfort, and support through books, blogs, podcasts, films, and more. That's allsauthors.com. Remember, you are not alone.